I have a transformed excess and shortage question from Nanhua end of year 2023 paper 2 question 14. Let's get started. So there were 10 chairs in each row. Let's underline important information. So we have 10 chairs. After Mr. Peng added 24 chairs, he rearranged the chairs in rows of 12. So let's underline 24 added and rows of 12. Now there were 6 less rows than before. How many chairs were there at first? Firstly, we can see that there are 2 cases over here. When it started with 10 in each row and after rearranging 2 rows of 12. So in order to visualize these 2 cases, let's list down what we have. Let me use R to represent each row. Now, do we know how many rows there are? No, right? So let's represent the number of rows like this. Since we don't know how many, then in the first case, each row has 10 chairs. So these will be the number of chairs. Now in the second case, after Mr. Peng added 24 chairs, each row will have 12 chairs. But it also says that there were 6 less rows than before. So, should the number of rows be the same? No, right? So which case will have more rows? Case 1. How many more? 6 more. So let's write these 6 more, and remember, all the rows have 10 chairs each. And as for case 2, we can leave these 6 rows empty. Now we want to find how many chairs there were at first. Looking at this looks familiar to an excess and shortage question type that normally has 2 cases with the same number of items or rows for both cases. But now in this question, each case has different number of rows. Is there a way that we can make the number of rows the same? If we consider the rows up until here and ignore the remaining 6, will they have the same number of rows? Yes. So let's consider the rows up until this point. Now let's take a look at the chairs for case 1. If Mr. Peng distributes all the chairs to these rows only, ignoring these 6, would he have used all the chairs? No, right? Because remember, at first, he was able to fill up 6 more rows. So, how can we find the number of chairs he will have left? It will be 6 times 10 from all these rows here, and giving us 60 chairs left. Okay, now let's take a look at case 2. He was able to arrange the rows of 12 after adding 24. So, is the total number of chairs used for case 1 and case 2 the same? No, there is 24 more in case 2. In other words, in order to have rows of 12, he needed 24 more chairs. Now, this has become an excess and shortage problem. In case 1, we have an excess over here, and in case 2, we have a shortage. This is because we made the number of rows the same. And now, if we compare these 2 cases, how many more chairs will each row have? 2 more, 12 minus 10. And we can call this a single difference. Now, in order for each row to have 2 more chairs, in case 1 we had 60 left, but now we needed 24 more. So, where did this 60 go? It would have been distributed in order for each of these rows to have 2 more. But not only that, we also needed 24 more chairs. So, not only will this 60 be distributed, we also need 24 more. So what will be the total that we will need more in case 2? It will be 60 plus 24. And we can call this the total difference. So 84 will be the difference between the total over here and the total over here. So since there is 84 more chairs in total and each row needed 2 more chairs, how can we find the number of rows over here? We can take 84 divided by 2, and that will give us 42 rows. So these 42 rows were the number of rows for case 2. And we can also call it as the rows in the end. So what we did was find the number of rows by taking the total difference divided by the single difference. This is an important formula for excess and shortage questions. Now, what is the question asking for? The chairs at first. So in order to find this, we will need the rows at first. So how many rows will this be? It will be 42 plus 6, which is 48 rows. So how can we find the number of chairs at first? So we have 48 rows, each having 10 chairs each. Now the number of chairs will be 48 times 10, which is 480, giving us our answer. So remember, this was a transformed excess and shortage problem, which means that at first it wasn't an excess and shortage problem, but after we made the number of items the same, it became an excess and shortage problem. And then we were able to apply the formula of number equals to total difference divided by single difference. Now there is also another way that we can do this question. Let me show you. So this was what we started with. We need to make the number of rows the same. And we consider the rows up until over here. But we can also consider all of the rows up until over here. So now with all of the rows in case 1, will it have an excess, shortage, or just enough? It will be just enough. Now in case 2, we want to consider for all the rows. So each row should have 12 each. Let's add it in. So would we have enough chairs for this? No, right? So how many more will we need? We will need 12 times 6. But remember, we also added 24. So the total more that we will need will be 12 times 6 plus 24, which gives us 96. And now this will be a single shortage question. So over here we have just enough, and over here we have a shortage. Now in order to achieve case 2 with all the rows having 12, we will need a total of 96 more chairs. So now what is the total difference between these two cases? The total difference between the total over here and the total over here will be 96 chairs. And now, what will be the single difference? It will just be the same, right? 12 minus 10, which is 2 chairs. So the total that we need is 96 in order for each row to have 2 more chairs. So how can we find the number of rows? It is 96 divided by 2, 48, which gives us the rows at first, all of these rows. So now how can we find the chairs at first? We can take 48 times 10, and that will give us the same answer of 480. So there are 2 methods to make the number of items the same. Either considering the number of rows for the first case, which is all of the rows, or for the second case, we can consider up until over here, which is the first method. Okay, now let's summarize this question together. So for this transformed excess and shortage question, what we can do is to make the number of items the same in order to make it an excess and shortage question. And then we can apply the formula to find the number of items by taking the total difference divided by the single difference. And that is all for this question. If you have any other questions regarding excess and shortage, feel free to scan this WhatsApp QR code to join our P5 study group. If you have any other questions regarding P5, you may ask it in the group as well. And with that, I'm Teacher Pamlin, and I'll see you in another video. Bye bye!